Hey, what's up guys, aarava here, and welcome back to episode of my F1 2021 My Team Career Mode, episode 48 today for the Austrian Grand Prix in Season 3. If you guys did miss the previous one at the Canadian GP, then be sure to go check that one out before you see this one. That was a very hectic Grand Prix, one to kind of forget for us, obviously, personally, but for you guys, probably quite entertaining, as we did have a Ferrari upside down right in front of us. We had diffuser damage, floor damage by the end of it, a few spins for good measure. It was a chaotic Grand Prix. Of course, Canada did not go well for us following that incident with Leclerc. I mean, that in itself was probably, yeah, as I said at the time, one of the biggest glitches I've seen in a career mode. I've had massive, collisions, incidents, but pure actual glitches where the game is broken on me. It doesn't really happen too often, actually, in my career mode series episodes. Maybe outside of that when we do experiments, but yeah, in the career mode series, that was probably the biggest glitch we've seen, where the Wall of Champions glitched Leclerc into the floor and then shot him up in the air. Spectacular sights, obviously, for us to watch, and made for a quite an interesting thumbnail, of course. But yeah, in terms of what it meant for our race, we lost ground to Lando Norris in the championship after, collecting diffuser damage now off the back of what I realised now was actually science when I was, slowing down for Leclerc. And then that diffuser damage basically was kind of like adding on damage everywhere else, because eventually my floor became yellow and then it just stopped working basically, and my car was spinning about everywhere after the rear tyres also were lit up. So yeah, down in P18, 0 points on the board. But what was a good story for the team, at least, was Mick Schumacher getting a second win for the season, and his second one on the bounce, back to back from Baku to Canada. And it means that our team has now won the last 4 races, the last 4 episodes. That is some kind of achievement, and is very unprecedented in a 16 race calendar season, I feel, to get 4 wins in a row as a team. So we're really, somehow performing so high, even though I don't know about you guys, I've generally not felt like our team is dominating at all. The races are still very, very close, but myself and Mick have done the job in the last 4 episodes. Obviously, we had the 2 very clever drives at Spain and Monaco. Mick had a very tidy drive, I guess you could say, at Baku and Canada. So kind of, different ways we've won the races, all equally close. But, when you really think about it, 4 wins in a row, that's a big deal in a 16 race calendar, and in a season where things are so close, to have that level of consistency that you can see McLaren and Ferrari clearly don't have to do it 4 in a row. Obviously, I know McLaren with Lando Norris have had 2 wins, obviously, already, but they've not been back-to-back, and Ricciardo, his teammate, has been lacking a little bit compared to in previous seasons. So that consistency we're showing as a unit, I think, is proving that we chose wisely to sign Mick Schumacher, and as a pairing, we're working very, very well at the moment. Obviously, though, things can change, and they will, as the other teams around us continue to make upgrades, and we need to try and continue to keep the pressure on and make upgrades where we can. So we're going to go ahead and purchase another engine upgrade. This will be the final fuel efficiency upgrade for ultimate upgrade there, and that may be, I think, the last engine upgrade we can do as a team, away from, obviously, Mercedes, the actual manufacturer, giving us some, manufacturer PU upgrades throughout the season. But of course, when we get those, I assume Mercedes and McLaren will get those as well, so it won't be as big of a deal. But yeah, myself and Mick really looking good, and Mick especially, 2 wins in a row. I spoke about this last episode. He must be really highly focused. 87 focus. That is very, very high. You got Hamilton down on 66. You've got kind of, a pattern for me. You can see why drivers are doing better than others. Bottas is on flipping 90 focus. 90 focus. Can you imagine if the Mercedes car was actually, reliable and they didn't have such bad luck? I think 90 focus Bottas would be unstoppable, but the 2 Ferraris are still very, very highly focused in the green there. So if Ferrari want to actually pull their act together and maybe bring 1 or 2 more upgrades, they could still come back very much so in this championship. That's obviously a massive hypothetical, and we know so often now in the last couple of F1 games, momentum, away from the actual focus stat itself, just general momentum of, operating well as an AI team seems to be a big thing, because, once they start badly at the start of the season, it's hard to recover. So at the moment, it is looking like, it's starting to emerge, I would say, now, as we get to the half-point way of this season. Obviously, next episode will be the halfway point in terms of when we look to re-sign Schumacher in the contract negotiations. I would say now, it is looking like it is myself v Lando Norris. Our team versus McLaren McLaren, but McLaren really only have one car in the game, basically, because Ricciardo, even though he's quite quick at times, has just not had that consistency to be scoring. But we're in a good position. I'm feeling good. 4 wins on the bounce as a team. You can't say you're not confident of how things are going, but it's still so close in the championship drivers-wise, because myself and Lando are having, you know, up and down races. I just had a massive downer. Lando's been super consistent. I think a P5 at Canada, then 2 second places in a row. So we need to make sure we can't have another race like Canada. We just can't. If we do, we need to hope that Lando himself also has a race like that where he scores no points. So it's that close in terms of myself v him. Now that race we had at Montreal, that has to be it. We can't have another dud like that one. But I've got to say, it's massively exciting at the same time talking about all of that, of, you know, seeing that emergence of who we seem to be fighting in the title. Mick Schumacher is there, don't get me wrong as well. Let's not forget about him. 2 wins in a row now. Could he continue this momentum, continue to work on the focus he's got, and, you know, how much form he's in? Could he go on to win a 3rd? Who knows? We're going to find out this race weekend. I'm going to try my best, though, to stop that, of course, because even though, obviously, it's great for the team, obviously, if he was to go on and win this race, 3 wins in a row, that would, one, be quite scary in terms of how consistent that is, because I don't think I've ever seen an AI win 3 races in a row, unless they're, you know, their team's, like, so far ahead in the R&D chart. And then also, it'd make things awkward again, as we saw last season in Season 2. It became very awkward, very tense between myself, Perez, and then Vettel, and that's, you know, I'd rather not be in that position, as much as it's quite juicy for you guys maybe to watch as viewers, seeing my teammate give me a good run for the money. Obviously, it's a little bit less, you know, one less thing to worry about, that dynamic of having your teammate in the same car be up against you, but it is going to be what it is. Let's see. We're now getting through qualifying, as I've been talking about that, by the way, as you would have seen, pretty, you know, usual business, as it were, in Q1, getting through just about, looking a bit slower, but then speeding up in Q2. But saying that, speeding up in Q2, myself and Mick, we didn't actually look that great in Q2. We only just about made it through, actually. I was maybe half a tenth or so away from being knocked out by Esteban Ocon, and George Russell is looking amazing. He got a podium, remember, last episode. He fended off Lewis Hamilton, actually, for quite a lot of the race, so fair play to him. So maybe, like Mick getting the win, maybe that podium Russell's got will give him a massive confidence boost, you know, boost him in terms of his focus and momentum that he's got, because he's now 7 tenths ahead of Ocon in the same car and through into the top 10 shootout. Ocon knocked out, and you can see Aston Martin at the bottom, though. P13-14, Aston Martin are slowly reeling back in us top teams, and they may, by the end of the season, just join us. Who knows? And that will make things even closer. But look into the top 10 shootout then. Well, Russell looking quick. Mercedes, Lando, though, is right up there. The Ferraris did bring upgrades into this race weekend. You would have saw, if you were focusing on the R&D chart I showed just earlier. So I'm wondering where they're going to show up. So we're here now in the top 10 shootout. This is our second flying lap. The first one was on a scrub set of old soft compound tyre, because I used 2 sets in Q2. So just did a banker lap, essentially. And now this is the real stuff. But let's see. It seems like we might be on the back foot. Schumacher P7 only right now. And as we go across the line, 5 tenths gain, just about 6 tenths nearly. But it's not enough to go any higher than P9. That is, yeah, disappointing, I would say. P9, Schumacher P7, Lando up in P5 there. So we have some work to do to catch up to him. But Ferrari, in the hands of Leclerc at least, do show up. Like I said, they did bring upgrades. And they're working in the hands of Leclerc at least, because he's on pole position. The 2 Mercedes looking pretty strong, though. P2 and 3. But, you know, how long is that going to last in a race? Let's see. And then Russell, really, really impressive. P4. Let's see what he can do. Could it be another podium for him off the back of Montreal? But for us, P9, that is disappointing. But Lando is P5, so it's not the end of the world, but there is rain, and that is a worry. So let's go to the grid. Let's find out what the damage is in terms of the wet weather, and then we'll go from there.
Welcome to the beautiful Styrian Mountains for another chapter in the story of the Austrian Grand Prix. It's a short lap here in Spielberg with just 10 corners, 7 rights and 3 lefts, making up the total distance of 2.6 miles. And expect to see a lot of cars running wide today, especially through the last corner, as the wet conditions make the cars skittish through the downhill sections. Not one of the easiest days to go racing. It's damp, it's slippery, there's dark clouds as far as the eye can see. The rain is here then, and that's going to take away a lot of the grip, Anthony Davidson, and make turn 1 very interesting indeed.
Yeah, it's these kind of conditions where you can go in with one of two mindsets. You either see it as an opportunity, or you're worried that all of your hard work's about to be undone. We've been stuck in these conditions now for a few hours, more or less this kind of intensity, so we don't seem to have too much standing water, so we're not likely to be starting behind a safety car. And like you say, Crofty, the charge down into turn 1 will be quite interesting. I think we're in for a cracking Grand Prix.
Let's run you through the driver grid order for today's exciting race. A fantastic effort from Charles Leclerc yesterday puts him on pole, and it's Valtteri Bottas that completes the front row. Looking down the rest of the grid, we have Hamilton, Russell, Lando Norris and Verstappen, Mick Schumacher, Sainz, the owner driver and Daniel Ricciardo, Ocon, Fernando Alonso, Callum Ilott and Stroll, Gasly, Tsunoda, Nikita Mazepin and Guan Yu Zhou, Latifi, Giovinazzi, Matsushita and Christian Lundgaard. And with lights out just moments away, it's time to go down to the track.
Right, the damage of the wet weather is pretty substantial, I would say. We're on the full wet tyres, and it looks like it is going to be actually full wet conditions at the beginning of this race, unlike Monaco, where the symbols were indicating it may just be intermediates, and we did that quite amazing strategy of starting on intermediates when everyone else was on full wet. It is everyone on full wet, so you can see the icon is clearly there for the full wet weather, but it is going to get to intermediates later on, and maybe even dry by the end of it, so there's some hope at the end of this race. But as I always say, I'm not that thrilled when we have a wet start or a mostly wet race, because it can be very challenging. Concentration needs to be at the high, and sometimes my concentration can slip, but let's hope for the best basically. But at the start it may just be a case of survival, especially on this year's game, F1 2021. The full wet conditions, I very much liken them to, they are monsoon basically, because the spray is actually so much bigger now in this year's game, and in terms of the visibility I feel like it's got even worse in terms of the graphical streaks across the screen. So it is going to be a challenge at the start, but that's what it's all about in a wet race. But I'm hoping that there's a chance to maybe jump ourselves up the order when we go to intermediates or the dry tyres at the end maybe, because obviously at the moment our nearest championship rival Lando Norris is 5 places ahead of us, and then also our teammate Schumacher is 2 ahead, but both of us were slow in Q3. What that means for our wet weather pace, I don't know. Let's just hope it's not insanely tough race maybe like we had at Portimao a couple episodes ago. So here we go then to 5 red lights at a soaking Red Bull Ring for the Austrian Grand Prix. 5 red lights are out and we're underway very nervously into the distance. Well, you can't see anything. The spray already kicking up. It's 3 wide maybe up ahead is the Ferrari of Sainz down the inside. Ricciardo's on the inside of us. There's some contact ahead and Sainz almost hits us on the right hand side as he's been pinched out by Verstappen and Schumacher. We're up into P8. Leclerc still leads the race then. Bottas and Hamilton very close for comfort as we are going to be with Schumacher as we enter the right-hander, as we all concertina up a little bit. It gets a little bit awkward at times as you have that domino effect of everyone slowing up and you sometimes want to bite a little bit more of the corner, send one down the inside, but you need to be patient in these full wet conditions and just make sure you keep it on the black stuff, and the positions will come if you got the pace. So let's see, but at the moment Sainz struggling now. He's down to P9 with obviously simulation damage that we have in this career mode. I wouldn't be surprised that if Sainz has some significant damage where he's going to have to pit now for an early pit stop, as Ocon now is closing up, and you can see the massive gap that's already grown to him to Ricciardo. 1.3 the gap is, so Sainz definitely has damage as Ocon now will go for a move. I think that will be around the outside. Sainz goes in for the pit stop. Ocon around the outside, and Fernando Alonso! Fernando Alonso's awkwardly hit Carlos Sainz, and there's more contact behind between Pierre Gasly and Callum Ilott. The 2 Alpha Tauris have tripped over one another. Oh no, at the Red Bull Ring, 2 of the junior Red Bull sister teammates have tripped over one another, and Fernando Alonso is out of this race, and the full course safety car is out because Fernando Alonso actually parked up at the last corner, and that was a bit dangerous in the opinion of the FIA. So the full yellows are out on lap number 1 then for the full course yellow safety car, and it's a disaster disaster at the Red Bull Ring for the Red Bull family. Verstappen is the only one in kind of an okay position. P6 here. The AlphaTauris both have to change their front wing. Alonso is out, but it is very, very tricky out here and a little bit dangerous, I must say. And so much so that very unusually here for the F1 game, we've gone on for another lap. We're actually on to lap number 5 under the safety car. Now, while that's unusual, is usually for the last couple of games, it's been very well known you do 2 laps under the safety car. You get picked up on the first lap, and then you do 2 further laps than that. But we've done 4 whole laps after being picked up by the safety car at the end of lap 1, so technically 3 maybe if you say we got picked up on lap 2. So I've never seen that before. I don't know if the game thought there were so many crashes and people making pit stops going on, or the rain was a factor. I'm not sure, but we've gone on for quite a while, and only now do the FIA think it is safer now to go onto green and get going once again. So as we move on to lap number 6 then, and we've not even done a full racing lap, remember, under greens here. We're going to try and make a move on Mick Schumacher. He's a bit slow off the restart into turn 1. Takes a lot of curb on the inside and the outside there, and that allows us to make the jump. He's going to squeeze us a bit. It's a drag race, and despite us deploying ERS, Schumacher looking a bit quicker in a straight line, so maybe he's running less downforce than us. I don't know, but I was very surprised I didn't breeze past him there with ERS, but I guess he started deploying his own ERS at the same point. Obviously, we're on the same car, so it wouldn't make too much of a surprise, but still, I thought we would hopefully get past. We're going to have to wait a little bit longer, and that might be a theme of this first part of the race in the wet conditions. You can't, you want to hurry up, obviously, like you do in the dry, but sometimes you have to be way more patient in the wet when it comes to overtakes, because if you try and overdo it and kind of, get a mistake, you'll probably end up losing more time than you really gain. Like here now, I've kind of lost a bit of time here to Schumacher. I was maybe more patient, maybe made the move on the second straight. I may have had him by now. We would have been back on the back of Max Verstappen. Who knows? So let's play this, smart and try and get a head down and try not make too many mistakes like that. As behind, the mistakes keep coming in that corner. Guan Yu Zhou has made contact, and Ricciardo just made contact with Ocon there, I think. As Ricciardo, I assume, trying to make a dive bomb down the inside of the last corner, and Guan Yu Zhou got caught up in the same place Alonso did. So it's a second safety car now. We already had one out for nearly 5 laps here. There's a question mark of should the race be, red flagged or looked at or something or other, because so many drivers are making so many mistakes and tripping over one another. That is, the safety concerns of how many crashes we're going to have before something goes badly wrong here. But the full course safety car is out for the second time. We asked a weather report because despite that concern in the cockpit for me, I'm looking around. It looks a lot drier. And I was thinking back to the race strategy screen. Remember, it said we're going to get to intermediates. I would say maybe around 2/3 of this race, or maybe halfway through this race. We're already at lap 7. We'll be under the safety car for a couple of more laps. I thought, why don't we risk it? We're P8 here. We're P8. I'm behind Schumacher right now. I'm behind Lando Norris. I've got not much to lose here, and I actually genuinely think it is kind of dry enough for intermediates. So we've come in, and we've made a very quick and rash and abrupt call, but I'm going on to intermediates on lap 8 here, under the second safety car. I'm getting a free pit stop, so I'm saving a pit stop here. And if I can do what I did in Monaco, if I can just survive the opening first laps here under green flags, if I can survive those first few laps where it's maybe not quite, if it's too wet for the intermediates right about now, if I can just survive them and get to that proper intermediate period, I would have saved myself a pit stop. I'll jump everyone that's ahead of me at that point. And you've got to think, remember back to Monaco, as we get towards the intermediate periods, my car, my tyres will get quicker and quicker, so I'll actually maybe start overtaking some cars maybe eventually on these inters whilst everyone's on full wet. So it's a massive gamble, I will admit, because there's nothing telling me it's time for inters. Like this time round, I can't look at an icon on a race strategy screen midway through the race and, just guess that it's time for inters. The track still looks pretty wet to me, but one, I felt like we need to roll the dice on something because we need to jump ourselves up the order. Being stuck there in P8 behind Schumacher wasn't helping us. And then 2, if you look here under the safety car, I'm not spinning up my wheels too much. I feel like even under this slow speed, I would be struggling to keep in a straight line if it wasn't, you know, okay to be on inters. Maybe not the quickest tyre, you know, albeit, you know, if I compare to Schumacher right now, but compared to these slower cars, the Haas right ahead of us, I reckon I could actually overtake him here on intermediates, even though it is very much still time for the full wet conditions. The full wet tyres are, you know, they're not working, they're working well, and you can see here, as I go a little bit deep there, I was very nervous at that lack of grip into turn 1, but that was maybe just the brakes being a bit cold. Because taking it a bit easier into the next corner, rolling the car through, and the grip is there. Around the outside we go, sailing over and past the Haas on the left-hand side and finding the traction, and there's not much wheel spin. I'm having to be a bit careful because I know it will spin on me if I'm a bit too aggressive with it and want a bit too much from the car at this stage, but it's not horrendous. It's like in Monaco, you know, I can survive this if I can just manage to get to the point of the race where it is actually now fully time for intermediates. We will be in a very good position, and I am catching these slower cars who obviously are much slower than me on the R&D chart, and we go sailing around the outside now of Yuki Tsunoda, catching a little slipstream off Christian Lundgaard as well in the Haas there. Bit of ERS usage, and we're down into the inside for the right-hander into P14 now. Lance Stroll, Latifi fighting ahead, Stroll being held up somewhat by the Alfa Romeo. Can we catch both of them? Maybe. Can hardly see the Aston Martin here due to the spray actually still. That's around the circuit, but Stroll around the outside of the Alfa, and we're gonna we're gonna try and make a move on Latifi, but you can see there it is still very treacherous. Make no mistake, I am taking a gamble here, and I could drop this and lose the back end at any point, as was very illustrated very well there as I went a little bit too eagerly onto the throttle. But if we can try and keep calm, we're just going to get to the intermediate period. And before we get on to catching up to Lance Stroll there, just showing a replay here. Now, this was at the same time as I was battling Tsunoda, I think. Leclerc loses first place there. Bottas a move for the race lead in full wet conditions there. Very nicely done by the Finn. You know, 90 focus, looking strong there. But then Hamilton also going for the move. Leclerc, I don't know what's happening to Leclerc. Has Leclerc got an issue in the car, I wonder, because he was on pole position. He was looking strong in the first part of the race. I don't know whether it's, I don't know, tyre wear on the full wet tyres, or the full wets aren't working for the Ferrari car anymore. I mean, Sainz is obviously P9 now, having made that very early pit stop, so he's caught back up and recovered quite well. Verstappen makes a double overtake on Lando Norris there, I think that is, and Russell. Yeah, Verstappen, what a move there on the outside of that right-hander to get Lando caught up behind Russell, and then got Russell on the exit, and now he's going to look to overtake Leclerc at the end of lap number 11. Down the inside he goes, Verstappen up into P3, so Verstappen's gained 3 positions in a lap as we now send one down the inside of Lance Stroll there, and you can clearly see I'm finding confidence, I'm finding a groove on the intermediate. Meanwhile, Leclerc is very much finding the opposite. He's finding nothing but pain here as he's now overtaken by George Russell. Something is very much wrong with that Ferrari car, and it's a shame to see, to be honest, because I had hopes of Ferrari, you know, being right up there maybe in this fight in the championship this season with how they started the season, you know, how quick they looked on the R&D chart, but they just, you know, keep on tripping over themselves with issues, mistakes, crashes, whatever, and it's now happening to Leclerc all over again, down to P6 now, overtaken by Russell and Lando Norris, as we now are just making our way up the order, having overtaken Antonio Giovinazzi. I can now see Sainz and even Schumacher faintly off in the distance, and we've gone purple in the first sector. So it is officially now, it's going from full wets to intermediates, but obviously with the way the AI work, they're still reluctant to go into intermediates quite yet, because the full wets are still working. They're still working fine, but the intermediates are just working even better. We're losing a bit of time there with Mazepin overtaking around the outside. Very nicely done. Red second sector, but we are still probably just about the quickest man on track. You just can't see it yet because we've not got a full clean lap in. We keep having to overtake cars. So in a way, it's kind of good. We're kind of being, you know, shrouded, you know. The true speed we have is being, you know, hidden a little bit, and so no one is going for the intermediates quite yet because they don't know how quick we are. As we make a move on Carlos Sainz there, the man we obviously saw at the very start of the Grand Prix. We've re-overtaken him there, and now we've set a purple time, and we're catching up to Esteban Ocon with a 5-second penalty, though. I think after he tripped over Ricardo, or they had some sort of kerfuffle, him and the McLaren there, so he's got a 5-second penalty, but we'll try and overtake him anyway, as we're going to try and get the traction there, and you can see already gaining time. ERS deployed, get in the toe of the Frenchman, go to the left-hand side. Ocon goes defensive to the outside, so we're on the long way around of this very tricky corner anyway in the dry, let alone wet conditions, and Ocon gives us a good fight, to be fair, as we jockey for position. We go side by side, but we are going to get the move on the inside then for the next left-hander, because we have the acceleration to match, and we are looking quicker and quicker every lap. I'm building confidence under braking, acceleration as well, and now we close back up to our teammate, the man we couldn't overtake when we were on full wet tyres, but now we're on the quicker compound, and this time it should be easy. Schumacher does squeeze us a bit and doesn't make it as easy as I was hoping for, but of course Schumacher, he doesn't have to, make it easy for us. Obviously he's in his own little fight here, but we are now very much in the zone, I would say, and it's a waiting game. It's a waiting game of when everyone else is going to decide to pit, and, basically, confirming what I am now starting to believe is the fact that we might actually be in first place by the end of this thing, because I don't think everyone else ahead of us was far enough ahead to not be behind us once they make their pit stop. And the speed we're showing right now, the rate that we're catching the top leaders is so quick now that, we're in such a good position as we now close up on Leclerc. He goes defensive. We go for the dive. We've overcooked it a little bit, though, and that is a reminder that we cannot afford to make mistakes. We need to make sure we don't get too overconfident, and that was me being overconfident there as I started to speak a bit more confidently about the situation, ironically. But we are going to catch Leclerc eventually, hopefully, and overtake him here eventually. But, it's a case of it's looking good. It's looking good. But let's just be patient. We just made a mistake there, so let's not get too ahead of ourselves. We could very easily do an aarav and just bin this at any point now. So we need to watch out for that. So we're now closing back up to Leclerc underneath his rear wing. You can see the acceleration kicks in again. He's going very aggressive on the defense, I must say, and he may even be coming in now. I think he is. Lando continues on, so our championship rival is right ahead of us in the McLaren. Russell continues on, but Leclerc's in, Schumacher's in, and are they going to come in for the intermediate? Surely they are. I hope Schumacher is, because this will be quite good for him to come in a lap earlier than the likes of Lando and Russell, and Leclerc is in for the intermediates. Schumacher, therefore, should be in for intermediates. Yes, he is. He's one lap earlier than the likes of Lando and Russell, so he may even jump Russell and Lando if the pace is quick enough on the intermediates. For once, my teammate's done a very good job of pitting earlier and, trying to get an undercut, whereas usually my teammates don't usually do that. So that's very promising as we now once again set more purple sectors, and we're right up the chuff for our championship rival Lando Norris in the McLaren. Closing. Do we dare go for the move? We are going to go for it. Stick our nose in. Hope he gives us the room. He does, as he goes a bit wide on the racing line. Bit of a twitch on the rear end from him. We're trying to keep it through on the inside whilst giving him the space. Oh, so close on the right. We're going to be side by side now. It's a drag race. Our tyre wall is literally side by side here as we go into the right-hander on the outside. Lando continues on now for another lap, as does Russell. So this is interesting. Russell and Lando think it's still good enough for the full wets as the two Mercedes cars are in, and the double stack for Hamilton is going to set him behind, surely, as Verstappen is also in. So we've got some differing opinions on whether it's truly time for intermediates. I think it is, and I think Russell and Lando are maybe making a mistake, but Lando's actually coming back at us now for an overtake. He's in a straight line pretty damn good still, even though the intermediates are quicker now. In a straight line, that McLaren's still going to catch us up a little bit there, but no, Bottas is on inters now. Verstappen's there. Ilott is out of position, but Leclerc and Schumacher, look at that. Leclerc and Schumacher now are ahead of Hamilton, so Mercedes screwed over Hamilton there with the double stack as Ilott's looking a bit slow. Hang on, I don't think that's spray. I think that's actually smoke off the back of his car there as he is retiring. Yes, he is. He is retiring from this Grand Prix. That is not spray. That is smoke coming out of his engine. And so the Aston Martin man has to retire. Aston Martin still nowhere near the lofty heights they were at Season 2. But they're making progress. They are making progress. But another... Oh, no, it's not quite the full safety car. I was going to say another safety car. But no, another yellow situation here. It's the virtual safety car. And that may actually help out Russell and Lando quite a fair bit as we now take the lead of the Austrian Grand Prix. That virtual safety car, I think that actually may allow Russell to keep second place here, and it may just allow Lando to maybe... Is he going to stay ahead of Bottas? No, but stay ahead of Sainz? Maybe yes, because Sainz is also in the pits. So this the virtual safety car has massively helped out Russell and Lando, because both of those guys would have been caught out on the full wet still. But now Russell has ended up in P2 in the Alpine, ahead of Bottas. Lando's in P4, ahead of Sainz, Leclerc and Schumacher, and we are in first place as we go green once again, as we've got quite a fair distance to this Grand Prix to go. Maybe gets to dry tyres. I'm kind of hoping so, because otherwise the tyre wear we're going to have at the end of this race is going to be insane. And that man Russell, 8 seconds back on fresh intermediates that he only put on 2 laps ago, he's going to reel us in, as well as Bottas, maybe even Lando in P4 there, but he's got a bit of a gap to Bottas in P4, to be fair to us there, so we may be safe from our championship rival by the end of the one. I don't know though, it might dry out still, but we've got Sainz ahead of Leclerc, Schumacher P7, but Schumacher is going slow, and no, Mick Schumacher is retiring. Our teammate has to end the race early with a mechanical failure of sorts, and it was going so well, 2 wins in a row for the lad. He did not deserve a DNF to ruin his momentum. I really hope that doesn't ruin his momentum completely in terms of performing well for us as a team, but we're going to have to see. But he's out, so the mechanical issues and worries for us maybe, as we've even got some engine wear. As you can see, the bottom right is orange there, so one of our components is worn. But right now, lap 25, we just set our fast lap of the Grand Prix, but then Russell went on and went even quicker. So even though I'm finding time right now as the track dries out, the fuel comes out, Russell, because he's on 9 or 10 laps younger tyres, he's finding even more time. So it doesn't matter how quick I'm going and, you know, doing personal best lap times, Russell's finding even more pace on the fresher intermediates. And that's why I'm hoping, I'm begging that maybe there's a dry period to come, because otherwise I'm going to have one very quick Brit in a blue Alpine car right behind me in the last couple laps, I think. And as we go on through this race, I'm thinking more and more that's what's going to happen, because I'm not really seeing it get any drier. Lap 27 onto 28, we overtake a back marker of the Haas. We're lapping him now, but the tyre wear is there. I can already feel I'm going slower than I was. You can see that on the top right as well, and on the top left, Russell's now only 3.2 behind me. He's reeling me in, and by lap 33 now, 3 laps to go in this Grand Prix, he is now 3/10 behind me. And look at the tyre wear. We're well over 75% on some tyres, and the inters, well, they're becoming slick inters maybe if I'm not careful here. The sun's coming out on the left hand side, but it's not enough. It's not going to dry the track out in time, so we're going to the end on this set of intermediate tyres. We've been on them since lap 9. We're losing quite a lot of time in Sector 2. Sector 1, we're finding the same amount of time though, because in acceleration we're able to get away from Russell. Remember, we are in a much better car than the Alpine, so that's helping me out, but the Alpine is being helped out by its 9-lap younger tyres, and so Russell is right there, but we're soaking up the pressure. We're finding the time in Sector 1, defending in Sector 2, but this time Russell now has the time in Sector 1 as well, as he goes for a move on the last lap of the Grand Prix. We defend on the insides the first time Russell's actually tried that move in Sector 1. As I said, so far we've been looking okay in Sector 1, but now the tyres are off the cliff. You can see the red icon. I think we're at 85% nearly on the front right tyre, so we're losing too much time now, and well, they're nearly at puncture area region, maybe potentially, as we're here on the last lap, Sector 2. You can see how much time Russell's gaining. We're constantly losing time here every lap here, but the difference was I was gaining it back in Sectors 1 and 3, but this time we may not be able to do that as Russell is coming through. We're deploying ERS. He has his nose in, but he's not going to go for the move. Is that inexperience maybe? Not going for it on the last lap? I don't know, but we come through through the last corner, and somehow, we're going to finesse the whole system, and we won the Austrian Grand Prix with another 300 IQ strategy, intermediates versus the full wet tyres, and that is a 5th win in a row for our team. 5 wins in a row.
That's it then for another spectacular Grand Prix here at Austria, and a truly magnificent drive to hang on and take the win. Anthony Davidson, how do you think they were able to set themselves apart today?
Well, keeping their tyre temperatures up in the tricky wet conditions was really important. There's not much grip out there at the best of times, and it's 10 times worse if you're out there on cold tyres. So the way they kept the rubber in its proper operating window was a huge advantage today.
Well, I'm thoroughly exhausted after the excitement of that race, but I'm sure it's nothing compared to our drivers here. They've worked hard to make it up there, and it's great to see them make their way out onto the podium.
The funny thing is, the Drivers' Championship is going to still be quite close because Lando scored well, but 5 wins in a row. I don't think I've actually done that in a career mode in a long while in terms of our team. Obviously, I haven't won all 5. Schumacher won the last 2 races. But as a team, I don't think we've ever done that in my team since it got into the F1 game on F1 2020. And then even thinking back to previous career modes and previous games, I don't think there was ever a point where me and my teammate got this many consecutive wins together as a pairing. This is turning into, well, it looks like domination in a way, but look at the standings. It's still super close between myself and Lando Norris. So it's domination, but it's also not at the same time. It's very, very weird. I can't really describe it. It's a very weird dynamic going on right now in the season. It seems like we have such overwhelming pace and momentum. We're doing such clever strategies and getting through, but at the same time, Lando's still there. His AI is still there. McLaren is still trying to fight us in the constructors as well. Only 57 points off. That's still very doable for McLaren. So it's still game on, but another clever strategy in the rain. I must say, if I do say so myself, I think this season, I think I'm doing some of my smartest racing in terms of strategies, playing to the gamble and just trying things out, and they're panning out for us. They're panning out for us, and we're being rewarded for it. I've been really happy with the driving we've been doing, from Spain, Monaco, and today now here at Austria. What a win, what a win. But, fair play to George Russell, another podium, and he gave me a good run for the money. If he was in a slightly better car, I think he would have overtaken me for sure before even the last lap, but because he was in an Alpine, we just about survived that on 85% tyre wear. But guys, if you did enjoy that one, hit the like button. Let me know what you thought in the comments below. What a way to bounce back from Canada. If you're new around here, do subscribe for weekly Formula 1 content. I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.